and is now threatening to penalize EU tech companies in return. Ambassador Greer joins us this morning. Good morning to you, sir. Where does this stand? And just so we understand the various chess pieces here, what kind of leverage do you think you have to actually effectuate this in the EU?
Well, good morning. Good to be with you. There are a couple of things. First of all, the EU itself knows that it lags on innovation. We had the EU put out the Mario Draghi report a year or two ago, talking about how what a lack of innovation they have and high regulation. So there's incentive on the EU side. On the U.S. side, there are a number of types of investigations that we could conduct to look into this and potentially take action. President Trump's been talking about this for several months, so this is not a new issue, unfortunately. And even before that, we've been dealing with it for years.
So, but in terms of what happens next, and assuming the EU says talk to the hand, which they could, are we talking just about fines? Are we talking about a different tariff regime? How are you thinking about this?
So this past summer, we issued a joint statement with the European Union on a variety of topics. One of those topics was about having fairness and non-discrimination in digital trade. I was in Brussels a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke with counterparts over there, and several of them just really refused to engage on this topic. I'm happy to engage with them. The United States is happy to engage with them. We've been trying for many years to do so, and they've not been responsive. So we have tools like Section 301, which is an investigatory tool that is designed to have a negotiated outcome. I don't think we're in a world where we want to have some renewed trade fight or something with the EU. That's not what we're talking about. We want to finish off our deal and implement it. But this is something that's really important, and we need to deal with it. We need to deal with it quickly. It'll be better for the EU and for us to have it resolved.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about was the president spoke, obviously, to the American public last night and talked about the $18 trillion, I think was the number he used, of investment pledges made into the U.S. as part of some of these tariff transactions or tariff deals with various countries. And I think the American public wants to understand the math behind that, because $18 trillion is an extraordinary amount of money. You look at some of the countries that have made these pledges, it's close to their entire GDP. Over what period of time should we anticipate these deals actually coming to fruition? And I should also just mention that Bloomberg had done an analysis of this and suggested that, in fact, there were closer to only really $7 trillion, which, by the way, is still an extraordinary number, but in terms of measurable deals that we should be thinking about.
Well, remember, the deals, they really have a couple parts to them. One is the investment headline numbers that you're talking about, which are really important. It's helping to reindustrialize America, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the other part are what I'd call the pure trade issues, where they're opening our markets to us. They're taking their tariffs down. They're removing their non-tariff barriers. And on that part, a lot of that is already in progress or going through legislatures in foreign countries. On the investment piece, this past week we saw a new zinc smelter be announced by a Korean company. We have the Koreans talking about more shipbuilding in the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. We have the Japanese companies like Hitachi and others building. So we see a lot of progress on that front, and we're going to be looking at it over the life of President Trump's term on the investment figures.
Right. The other thing that I think we're all waiting to hear from is the Supreme Court about what they ultimately think of these tariffs and whether they're going to either strike them down or try to change them or something else. What kind of preparations are you making behind the scenes right now in that regard, and what are you hearing from various countries around the world?
So remember, the president has been focused on a tariff program for many years. And so even before Inauguration Day, we had a number of plans of how to implement tariffs, and the president ultimately appropriately selected that using his emergency authorities was the best, because we could move quickly and flexibly to respond to the emergency of offshoring and the deficit. That being said, at that time, we also had other options for the president. We have tools under Section 301 to deal with specific unfair trading practices and use a tariff to combat those. We have Section 232 tariffs that are in place and aren't challenged. So tariffs are going to be part of the policy landscape going forward, regardless of what happens. We're pretty confident about the case, by the way. We laid out a pathway for success and for the Supreme Court to find for the government, but we have plans if it goes the other way.